Loud. There we go. We're recording. Well, Tamara, welcome. This is Brian Koshley with AVRP Studios, and we are talking today with Tamara Miller of AVRP Studios as part of our celebration of Women's History Month. Tamara, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
I'm Tamara Miller. I'm the Managing Director of Interiors, and I focus mostly on educational design. I have a strong background in higher education, but also work on K-12 projects and office education.
Like I said, it can be raw.
On corporate office projects as well.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Tamara, why don't you share for a few moments, when was the first time that design as a profession kind of surfaced for you as a young person?
Well, interestingly enough, in high school, I took one of those aptitude tests, and it came back saying that I had a strong aptitude for textile and apparel design. And so that was the first time that I thought of taking my interest in the fine arts into more of a design direction. And apparel and textile design didn't really suit me. I was more of a problem solver. And so then I was really interested in architecture. And I had a friend's dad tell me, don't go into architecture. So I thought, okay, for sure, then interior design, because it's so different. And so I went to school for, it was actually called Human Factors in Ergonomics. And we studied design, but then also the human interaction with the spaces that we designed. So there was psychology of design, there was the physical ergonomics, wayfinding, all that kind of thing.
So talk about that a little bit, because that's a very focused kind of educational path. How have you applied the industrial psychology components and the human factor components into your role, kind of leading the workplace charge for AVRP?
To me, considering the person in design is everything. We typically in architecture, you're looking at how the building is setting in its site and its environment. But when we're focusing on interior design, we want it to look nice, but first and foremost, we want the person to feel comfortable. We want the person to be able to learn in the space to the best of their ability, work in the space to the best of their ability. And when you think about going through all different aspects of your everyday life, if you go into work every day and that doorknob just doesn't open easily, and it is a continuous, even if it's minor, but a continuous stressor, as a designer, we try to alleviate that and make the environment in which we work, live, and learn as seamless and stress-free as possible.
I like that. That's one of the things I've enjoyed about workplace is, we can spend, well, before COVID, we were spending 50 to 60 hours a week in a work environment. You think about as a designer, the ability to positively impact people, creating workplaces that, as you said, are tuned to the human factor is key. So talk a little bit about, so you've been with us for a couple of years now. How did you come to AVRP as a firm?
Well, I have a good friend, Sandra Viam, who is the wife of one of our partners. And she called me out of the blue one day and said that her husband's firm was in need of a lead designer. And I was actually very happy with the firm that I was working at previously, and told her that I didn't have much interest in leaving. And she was very crafty, and she said, "Oh, that's great, but would you want to meet him? Because you've never met my husband, and it would just kind of be the next step in our friendship. We can do coffee." And so I had a phone conversation with the two of them, and I really had a good feeling about Chris. He's a very engaging and personable individual, and I was impressed with the things that he had to say. And so months and months later, you know, we had emailed and we had both just been looking for the right opportunity when our schedules aligned. We met up for coffee along with yourself, Brian, if you remember, and we all just sat down for a chat. And the vibe among the three of us was really great. And I could just see working with the two of you and it being a great collaboration. And it was the first time in a lot of years that I saw myself moving on to something different. And you both said some things that really hit home. You had asked me what I wanted my ideal job to be and asked me to write that down. And no one had ever asked me that before. And I thought that I had a chance to really create change and make an impact, not just through my design, but in the place where I work. And that was something that I felt that I was missing. As a young designer, you're focusing so much on your projects. And then as you move forward in your career, you start being concerned about your coworkers, about the people that you're mentoring, and you want to make an impact on the place in which you work. And that was the opportunity that I wanted to take.
So moving on with that theme, what would be your favorite thing or experience about being part of AVRP Studios? Just one. I know there's so many things.
The opportunities and everyone's willingness to listen and be open to new ideas. I think that's something that's very important. In our workplace group, it doesn't matter where the idea comes from or who the idea comes from. If it's a good idea, we're going to explore it. And sometimes the crazier, the better. We've worked on a couple of projects now where we've thrown out some real interesting design stories, and they've all been entertained and picked apart, and we've had greater designs come out of it.
You've had a pivotal role, I think, in leading those conversations. You know, your passion for the end user has given you a role within our organization of almost being, you know, the moderator or the person asking those probing questions that really elevates the quality of design solution that we come up with as a firm. So it's been great seeing you in that role. If you had advice for other women in the industry, what would be a piece of advice that you would throw out to other women in our industry?
Value yourself. There are going to be ups and downs in the economy. And that was something that when we had the recession during 2008, I was so thankful to have a job that I did anything and everything and didn't necessarily think about for years on end where my career was going. I was just happy to be at a great firm and have a good position, but I didn't realize that I was lacking some mentorship and lacking some opportunities. And so you always need to take the time to evaluate what you're doing and where you're going, and speak up, because if you're not advocating for yourself, who is? That's great. And you've done that even in professional circles. You chaired a committee or a program for IIDA last year, didn't you? That was along the lines of mentorship. Yes. Shoot, we're gonna have to dub this because I'm drawing a complete blank. It's no worries. There you go. Yes, I was the VP of Professional Development for our Southern California chapter. So that covers Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, and the Inland Empire. And so it's all about creating opportunities for designers at any point in their career to take the next step, learn something new, that kind of thing, open their minds. So
You did a great job. I mean, it was, I got the opportunity to participate in kind of one of the presentations for a designer in our office, Julie Hirth, who was graduating from that program. And it was just great to hear the impact that that program had, as you mentioned, for designers at a variety of stages in their career. So here's, following on the theme earlier of your advice to women, if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice professionally as a woman in the industry, what would that be?
The same thing, speak up for yourself and make sure that you're evaluating where you are in your career and knowing what you want to do. There was also a point, I had mentioned the recession of 2008, and then years later, I had the opportunity to work in a different market segment. And I took that opportunity, but still knowing that I had a passion for the market segment that I was working in. And what I really wanted to do was do both. And I had to come back and say, you know what, I don't want to give up educational design. It's really important to me. And so I think that it's, as long as you approach things from a respectful and honest way, you can have any kind of conversation you want to have. I believe in transparency in opinions, and if someone disagrees, that's fine, but no one's going to disagree if you're coming from an honest and respectful point of view.
Great. Final question. So this year's International Women's Day theme is Choose to Challenge. How would you apply that theme to your work in your life?
This one's a pretty personal one for me. I just had a baby a few months ago, and with COVID and the pandemic, and everyone being forced to work from home, that actually created a beautiful opportunity for me to be pregnant while working from home and taking time during the day to go walk around my neighborhood on my lunch hour, because I wasn't driving somewhere to meet up with someone for lunch. And so I was able to focus on self-care while working, which we don't always get to do, and still working from home. And I have my partner is watching our baby. He's on paid parental leave currently. And so I have benefited in that I've had more flexibility. And so I choose to challenge our industry and other industries to allow for some more flexibility. I think that there's absolutely going to be a return to the workplace. I think we absolutely need to be around each other, and especially as designers, we need to be able to bounce ideas off of each other and meet in person and see physical samples in person and spend that time creating trust among our coworkers and building team vibes. But I think that there's also the opportunity to stay home if you're not feeling well, so you don't pass sickness around to everyone else. You might feel well enough to keep working on a deadline if you choose to do that. Although really you should be getting some rest and getting better. But if you need to work, I think you can keep yourself away from others and make sure that they're not getting sick. I think that there's opportunity for mothers, and this is where it gets personal, if they need to take care of a sick child, or fathers, or you need to take care of a sick family member, you can work from home and do that and not take up your sick days in order to achieve that. I think that we are, as people are getting vaccinated and we're looking at going back into our normal daily lives again in the next few months, 6 months, I want to challenge the industry to allow for a little bit more understanding and flexibility, that people have lives and people have already been working on the weekends and working in the evenings. Now it's allowing for some of the personal time to infiltrate the business day. And I think we're able to be capable of so much. You know, they say you can't do it all. Well, I think you can get close if there's some of the flexibility that we've been able to achieve this past year.
Oh, that's great. That's great insight. Well, thank you for joining us, and really appreciate your thoughts, and congratulations on the baby. And
Thank you.
I'm sure you and I will be talking again soon.
Sounds good.